This should be part 6. I've got my passport to Magonia on UFOs, Folklore, Parallel Worlds by Jacques Vallée. My rent's going up 15% beginning of the year. I have no idea how am I going to have enough money for food and for rent. Shit. They sure like putting the squeeze on us, don't they? The secret commonwealth. To know human life, one must go deep beneath its sunny exterior. To know that summer sea, which is the fairy faith, one must put on a suit of armor and dive beneath its waves, and behold the rare corals and moving sea palms and all the brilliant creatures who move in and out among those corals and sea palms, and the horrible and awful creatures too, creatures which would devour the man were his armor not of steel, for they all mingle together in the depths of that sea, hidden from our view as we sail over the surface of it, sunlit water only. Walter wins the fairy faith in Celtic countries. The teletype message arrived in Dayton, Ohio on September 9th, 1966 through military channels. The full text, about 4 pages long, was quite unintelligible. Without knowledge of the Air Force procedure for the transmission of UFO reports, the message is shortened by reference to known standardized questions that are never repeated in the text itself. With the help of the standard questionnaire, however, it is generally possible to find out what the sender was trying to describe. This particular message had originated at Kelly Air Force Base, Texas, and was addressed to the Air Force Systems Command headquarters, the U.S. Air Force, and the Secretary. It bore the headline Unclassified Routine, and the title UFO Report is submitted in accordance with AFR 200-2, I guess. Kelly Air Force Base was sending something very close to a ghost story. The report made reference to separate incidences occurring respectively on August 6th and September 3rd, 1966, in a small Texas town. The author of the report is a father of 4 children. We shall call him Robert. His house is located in a fairly isolated spot. He has never discussed the instances with his neighbors. On August 6th, the 3 youngest children, age 6 to 9, noticed a dark object shaped like an upside-down cup. Although it was afternoon, the children had not seen the object arrive. It was dark, without color, without lights, and then a square yellow light appeared, like a door opening, and a small creature was seen in the square light. The entity, 3 to 4 feet tall, was dressed in black clothing, which reflected a yellow or gold color. The observation lasted several minutes. Then the door closed. A low humming sound became audible, and the object took off towards the northeast, rising sharply, but at an unexceptional speed. These details, naturally, were not given spontaneously by the children. The story was reconstructed during the investigation. At no time did the object touch the ground. It hovered at a height of about 15 feet near a tree. It's always near a tree, which was found undamaged, about 35 feet from the house. The second sighting took place on September 3rd. Most of the family had gone away, but the oldest daughter had remained in the house with a friend. They were watching television in the afternoon when the set snowed, then went out. The house was lit up with eerie red and yellow lights, which appeared to be circling or twirling. They looked outside and saw an object hovering in the same position by the same tree. As in the first sighting, its shape again was that of an upside-down cup with a flat disc beneath, like a saucer. It was covered with light and departed shortly afterward. No sign of life was apparent inside or outside the craft. 2 days later, Robert was propped up in bed. Through his door and across the hall, you could see a dark doorway leading to his son's bedroom. All of a sudden, he saw a small person, 3.5 to 4 feet tall, dressed in tight-fitting clothes, and entered the dark room. He assumed it was his small daughter going to talk to her mother, who was in the room with his sons. About 10 minutes later, he saw something like a bar of light, which appeared to crumble. He got up and went to the room, where he found his wife and his boys, who had also seen the bar of light. He did not see the person in white leave. His wife stated their daughter had not been in the room at any time. There was no physical evidence to substantiate the presence of a small person in the house. The rocks were full of them, of course. In the island of Aramore, a man named Old Patsy, whom we met in Chapter 2, told Walter Wentz true story about the fairies. 20 years or so ago, around the bed of Dormont and Grania, just above us on the hill, there were seen many fairies, crowds of them, and a single deer. They began to chase the deer and followed it right across the island. At another time, similar small people chased a horse. The rocks were full of them, and they were small fellows. Another person told Wentz, "My mother used to tell about seeing the fairy folk dancing in the fields near Cardigan, and all other people have seen them around the cromlech up there on the hill. They appeared as small children in clothes, like soldiers' clothes, with red caps, according to some accounts. While Wentz was recording material in Ireland, he went to Ruttra with Dr. Hyde, of course, and they were told the story about a leprechaun. One day I was gathering berries along a hedge not far from here, and something made me turn over a flat stone, which I saw in the ditch where I stood. There beneath the stone was the most beautiful little creature I have ever seen in my life. He in a hole as smug as could be. He wasn't much larger than a doll, and he was more perfectly formed than a little mouth, with a little mouth and eyes. I turned the stone over again and ran as hard as I could to bring my mother, but when we got back we couldn't see a thing of him. Now since we are getting to the central idea of this book, I will quote 2 more stories, both of them landing reports from his richest period in terms of number of landings reported, autumn 1954, and UK history. Both stories came from France. First case took place on October 9th. 4 children living near Porny la Chive. Oh God, I can't ever remember how to pronounce that one. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I do not speak French. I can barely speak English. I don't even think I even spelled that. Let's see. Get this right. Pronunciation. Let's see if we get some of it right. It's not going to do it.
Moselle.
Moselle. Okay. Moselle, not Moselle or Moselle. It's Moselle. And God knows how the rest of it is pronounced. Anyways, so this place that I'm pronouncing Pornoy la Chitive, Moselle, at least I got that part right, reported that about 6:30 p.m. as they were roller skating, they suddenly saw something luminous near the cemetery. There's always cemeteries and trees. There's always involved with this shit, because I think we're dealing with spirits. That's something that's hard for people to accept, even myself. It was a round machine about 2.5 meters in diameter, which was standing on 3 legs. Soon a man came out. He was holding a lighted flashlight in his hand, and it blinded us. But we could see that he had large eyes, a face covered with hair, and like he was very small, 4 foot tall. Eli was dressed, I think he means he was dressed in a short black sack like a cassock. And then an M. La Cure wears. I don't know what that means. Oh man, I might have to actually get this book. La Cure wears. I'm not sure what that means. He looked at us and said something we didn't understand. He turned off the flashlight, We became aware and ran away. No, we became afraid and ran away. When we looked back, we saw something in the sky. It was very high, very bright, and flew fast. The second case is a classic one. It happened on Sunday, September 26th, in Chebchuli Drome. Fuck if I know I said it right. At about 2:30 p.m., Mr. Labouf was gathering blackberries along a hedge. Yes, it was almost the exact duplication of the leprechaun story when the dog began to bark. Then started howling miserably. She looked around and saw the little animal standing at the edge of the wheat field in front of something that she thought at first was a scarecrow. But going closer, she saw that the scarecrow, in quotes, was some kind of small diving suit made of translucent plastic material, 3 feet tall or a little taller, with a head that was almost translucent. And suddenly she realized that inside the diving suit was a thing, and that behind the blurred transparency of the helmet, 2 eyes were looking at her. At least she had the impression of eyes, but they seemed larger than human eyes. As she realized this, the diving suit began to move towards her with a kind of quick, waddling gait. At this point, Mrs. Labouf fled in terror and hid in a nearby thicket. When she tried to locate the entity, there was nothing to be seen, but all the dogs in the village were fiercely barking. All of a sudden, a large metallic cylinder object rose from behind some trees and took off towards the northwest. People who had heard the witnesses' cries soon gathered around her. At the site where the disc had been seen to rise, a circle was found, about 10 feet in diameter, where shrubs and bushes had been crushed. From one of the acacia trees at the edge of the circular imprint hung down a branch more than 3 inches thick, broken by pressure from above. Kind of like tree breaks that Bigfoot's supposed to do, huh? The branch of another acacia, which hung over the circular mark 8.5 feet above the ground, was entirely stripped of its leaves. The first few yards of wheat in the path of the object as it took off through the field were flattened out and irradiating lines. That doesn't look good with that. It seems like we might be having a problem here with now connection with archive. Not a good sign. Hope it doesn't stay that way. We'll find out the next page, or 2 pages from now. I hardly need underline the similarities between the depression left by this object and various kinds of rings and nests we have already studied. Let us now return to the Pans, the dwarfish race that accompanies the Corrigans, the fairies of Brittany. My shoulders hurt so bad. They are seen only at twilight or at night. Some carry a torch like a Welsh death candle, They have swords no bigger than pins. According to Vellemarku, a careful distinction should be drawn between Korrigans and dwarfs. The latter are a hideous race of beings with dark and even black hairy bodies, with voices like old men. Oh, that sounds like me then. And little sparkling black eyes. A man who wrote to me after reading Anatomy of a Phenomenon pointed out that although B was unconvinced, about the existence of the unidentified flying object. It must mean he, although but this is a B. I don't know. He had discovered something he thought might be of interest to me. He continued thus. I have spent several years doing research on the Cherokee Indian, which is a branch of the Iroquois tribe. When the Cherokee migrated into the hills of Tennessee, they came upon a strange race of moon-eyed people who could not see in the daylight. The Cherokees, being unable to understand these wretches, expelled them. Barton, in 1797, states, quote, "These people were a strange white race, far advanced, living in houses," end of quote, etc. Haywood, 26 years later, states that invading Cherokees found white people near the head of Little Tennessee, with forts extending down as far as Chiamonga Creek. He gives the location of 3 of these forts. Confirmation of my correspondence report is found in the excellent book Mound Builders of Ancient America, the archaeology of a myth, by Robert Silverberg, quotes Barton's New Views of the Origins of the Tribes and Nations of America, published in Philadelphia and dedicated to Thomas Jefferson. First thing I want to do is let's look up some of these books. Some of these could be possibly something worth reading in the future, and maybe we can get a better whatever. First thing was look up Anatomy of a Phenomena. See if they got it. Hello? I'm really busy right now. Could you call another time? Not to be rude, but I'm really busy. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Sorry for all the interruptions. Listen, I don't got enough time to do this professionally, and I need to get this stuff done for my own research, and I'm sharing my journey with you guys, so I apologize. Which, by the way, if any of you do value anything that I do, and you think about donating anything to me, you can find me on PayPal. I think it's ORD3. Well, first of all, we got that. So the next one is, looks like they do have that. And then I'm going to check out Mound Builders of Ancient America. That might be an interesting book. There's a lot of old books, and 100, 200 years. Of course, some of these I'm reading right now are not even close to that. They're more like 67 years. But there's a lot of good information that that needs to be brought back to life, I think, or brought to light. Is that a better way of saying it? Mound builders. I think there's an honesty, and I know people when I was as a someone who used to be a hardcore Christian, even I used to say these are all like demons, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't think so. I think it's based on our own ignorance that we call this stuff that. But the truth matter is, from my observation and what I'm hearing from other people is, we're doing a lot of parroting, and we really don't know what the hell we're dealing with. Which says a lot about this place, and it's like a place that's set up, is designed for us to fail. Like we're trapped in some kind of soul trap matrix. Let's see, put archive.org with that, and then I will check later after this reading. Then I get back to writing my book, and then I'm interviewing a guy tonight. I consider somebody I like, hopefully as a friend, and so definitely someone I respect a lot. Eddie. He's known as, yeah, they do have that. Then let's see what this other book is, because there's such a strong connection with indigenous, ancient cultures, spirits, ancestral spirits. We're dealing with spirits of some sort or another, and it seems the whole idea is to set us up. New views of the origins. I wouldn't be surprised if this one's a little outdated, but it's probably, if people can remember that 100 years, well, technically the American Indian Wars ended 100 years ago, but in reality, actually a little less than 100 years ago, it's clear that it's not the case. It still carries on. Our bigotry and our racism, that seems to be universal, is very pervasive and very stifling and severe to indigenous populations. I think looks like we might be able to find all three of those. Okay. So we got that. We got this. We can get rid of that, and we get back to that. So looking at those books, I think it's really important to. I have to read these books, and since I have to read these books, I feel the urge to read these books. Some of the more contemporary books that we have that have come out in the past 5 years. I don't have the money. Maybe I'll start making money if I get this book done and people actually pay for it, and I make some money off that. I doubt it. I don't have much hope for that. But I still feel it's a necessity that I archive and at least offer up a book with images of things that I filmed last year, and in particular in my stories in 2017. I wish I had the health to and energy to do a lot more field research, but I can't. So I'm broke, and I'm broken, and don't have very much support. There's just a couple of people that have helped here and there, like JT from Sasquatch Confessions. If it wasn't him, I wouldn't even have a computer. And then, and hopefully, I think his brother might have helped, and other the people associated with him, and the bros over there at Squatch, the Squatch gang, and then Robbie Lowdown, and I hope he still supports me, and still at least values what I do. I know it's probably very challenging for him because, the Christian thing, the Christian beliefs and all that, but you have to, if you're doing what I'm doing and your pursuit is the truth of the reality of what's going on around you to the best of your ability, unfortunately, you have to keep moving forward, and it's not a thing personal to anyone else. I value everybody who's been part of my journey, and I wish that they would still stay with me, but I'm not going to be just making up stuff in order to make everyone happy. That wouldn't be fair to anybody. You know what I mean? So I don't know what else to do. Now, saying that, so I think that definitely The Enemy of Phenomena is very important to read because it's from Jacques Vallée. And then The Mound Builders of Ancient America and Archaeology of a Myth. That seems very interesting to me. But then, and I hope that the views of the origins of tribes and nations of America is not some. I hope it's more full. I hope it's not full of a European bias in it. I'd be shocked if it isn't. But what can you do, except investigate and find out, right? The Cherokee tell us that when they first arrived in the country which they inhabit, they found it possessed with certain moon-eyed people who could not see in the daytime. For some reason, that word "see" has a big giant capital G to it. That's what I'm dealing with reading this. These wretches were expelled. Silverberg adds that Barton left the clear implication that these albino people were responsible for the Tennessee mounds. Think about that one. These albino people were responsible for the Tennessee mounds. Let us come to the point now. If it would be nice to hold on to the common belief that UFOs are craft from a superior space civilization, because this is a hypothesis science fiction has made widely acceptable, because we are not altogether unprepared scientifically and even perhaps militarily to deal with such visitors. Unfortunately, however, the theory that flying saucers are material objects from outer space manned by a race originating from other planets is not a complete answer. However strong the current belief in saucers from space, it cannot be stronger than the Celtic faith in elves and the fairies, or the medieval belief in Teutons, or is it meant to be Titans? I don't know, but it's Titins. Well, we can look and see if there is such a thing. It could be misspelling. Teutons? Teutons. Poisonous crystalline glucoside. What? It's a chemical in our day. This says here that could be wrong. but according to, they say it's a chemical, poisonous crystalline glucoside. But why did he end up putting Teutons there? Maybe he meant Titans. Or a fear throughout the Christian lands in the first centuries of our era of demons and satyrs and fauns. Certainly it cannot be stronger than the faith that inspired the writers of the Bible, a faith rooted in daily experiences with angelic visitations. Well, it does bring that up in the Bible, but the Bible, I think, is a book of black magic. I sincerely mean that. After all the time I spent studying and reading it, and I read the damn thing online twice, the New Testament 6 times. And when I see the results of in my life and everybody else's life, it's just something seriously wrong with it. In short, by suggesting that modern UFO sightings might be the result of experiments or a scientific or even super scientific nature conducted by a race of space travelers, we may be the victims of our ignorance, an ignorance that finds its cause in the fact that idiots and Platons alike. I am an idiot. I don't hide the fact that I'm an idiot. But to be less of an idiot, you have to work at it, right? Even if it isn't impressive to the rest, can't do nothing about it. A person who is excessively concerned with minor details and rules or with displaying academic learning. Pedants. I call it Platons. I don't even know where I got the L from. My apologies. So, the fact that idiots and pedants alike, through a common reaction that psychologists could perhaps explain if they were not its first victims, could have covered the fairy faith with the same ridicule as other idiots and pedants cover the UFO phenomena. The realization that rumors of the real meaning of UFO phenomenon set in motion the deepest and most powerful mental mechanisms makes acceptance of such facts very difficult, especially since the facts ignore frontiers, creeds, and races, defy rational statements, and turn around the most logical predictions as if they were toys. It is difficult to come to grips with the UFO phenomena, for although it clearly evolves through phases, its effects are diffused and cannot be dated very precisely. We have to rely on legends, hearsay, and extrapolations. Much can be accomplished, however, once it is realized that the observational material on hand since World War II, the 20,000 or so clear-cut dated reports of UFOs in official and private files, is nothing but a resurgence of a deep stream of human culture known in older times under various other names. I think they are part of this archonic forces that are observing us and feeding off us and are suffering and pain. I really do. I think that the Gnostics had a good point to all this. And then if you look at the modern, today and what's coming out in small circles, very small circles right now, but dealing with the soul trap matrix, reincarnation soul trap matrix, that they and then you look at Hermeticism and a few other things, and this whole idea of preparing yourself a lot of Native American cultures as well, preparing yourself for the afterlife. Why? And what was this all about? It was so you didn't have to come back here, which has been a universal belief outside of the Abrahamic faith, modern day version, Abrahamic faith, for thousands of years, spanning across the globe. I do believe that modern day, the Abrahamic faith, along with the other religions, are part of the matrix to ensnare our minds and our spirits, and to keep us from empowering ourselves. It's a great struggle to find oneself in this place. It's an awful struggle. Most people get lost in their careers and paying the mortgages and making the spouse happy, that one loses oneself. It's amazing that there's not more violence than there actually is. I'll be honest with you. Whence, as we have found several people in Celtic countries who had seen the gentry. And every time I hear that, it reminds me of a partial preterist Christian. His last name is Gentry, who could not be any more dishonest. When you get to the point that we'll talk about tonight, tonight will be this November 6th, 2023. By the time you hear this, it'll be days later. But my first interview that I'm going to do in 5 months, 6 months, is with a pastor with an E, MacDaddy, Eddie. And we're going to get honest about what's going on in this world, especially with Christianity. It's going to make a lot of people mad, but hopefully open up their eyes, too, to reality of what's going on. And this does not make me happy doing, because I spent, a decade intensely involved in the internet Christian truther community. And if it's a truther, you find out the truth about Christianity, what do you do? And Jesus, you just have to be honest about things, right? Or you're just a giant hypocrite. So it's a dilemma, isn't it? The general belief in the interior of Brittany is that fays once existed, but they disappeared as their country was changed by modern conditions. In the region of Mead and I think it's Mean and Ers, and then it says et Villain, and I'm sure that's not spelled right. It is said, or pronounced right, it is said that for more than a century there has been no fays on the sea coast, where it is firmly believed that the fays used to inhabit certain grottos in the cliffs. The opinion is that they disappeared at the beginning of the last century. The oldest Burtons say that their parents and grandparents often spoke about having seen fays, F-E-E-S. But very rarely do they say that they themselves have seen fays. M. Paul Silbillet found only two who had. One was an old needle woman of St. Cast, these words right, who had such fear of fays that she was on her way to do some sewing in the country, and it was night, and she always took a long circuitous route to avoid passing near a field known as the Convent de Filles. Or is it convent? It's either Couvent des Filles or Fays, Convent des Filles. phase. This phase. The other was Mary Chahu, a woman 88 years old. And I butchered all those names except for it's Marie. Miss Marai Chaku. I butchered her name too. The central question is the analysis of the UFO phenomena has always been that of controlling intelligences behind the objects' apparently purposeful behavior. In stating the problem in such terms, I am not assuming that the objects are real, contrary to the implications someone might draw if he read this book too fast. Yet in no way am I excluding the possibility that this controlling intelligence is human. I shall elaborate on this idea in the latter chapters. For the time being, let me simply state again my basic contention. The modern global belief in flying saucers and their occupants is identical to an earlier belief in fairy faith. The identities described as the pilots of craft are indistinguishable from elves or sylphs or lutins. I guess that's what it is, lutins, Lutins, of the Middle Ages. Through the observations of unidentified flying objects, we are concerned with an agency our ancestors knew well and regarded with terror. Are we prying into the affairs of the secret commonwealth? And there's asterisk here. And undertaking research into beliefs in fairies, gentry, called them what you will. Confusion arises from the great variety of names and classifications given the different races of beings. In Lower Brittany alone, Paul Sibelius has found and classified 50 different names given to Lutins and Corrigans, while Latins themselves are the same as the Elvish people, Pixies and Cornwall, Robin Goodfellows in England, Goldums and Wales and Goblins and I guess it's supposed to be Normandy, or no, that doesn't make sense. But I can't read it because it's not readable. And brownies in Scotland. So there's brownies, goblins, golems, goodfellows, pixies, and elvish people in Latin. And then we got Teutons. I guess we said Titans is Teutons. And I probably have not been saying right. Sylphs, and I lost my place here. It doesn't even matter. So it's Lutins and Corrigans and anyways. Oh, that's above there. Sylphs, Lutins, and Elves. Which, from my research and what I'm filming, I think they're real. They're interdimensional like being spirits that somehow traverse and use the elements and the trees. As bizarre as that is, but that's what I'm filming. And the difference between me and other people is I'm going, when I do go, which this fall I have not done much except for filming in the air just around town instead of going to sites to film or search for quote-unquote Bigfoot, because the problem is I'm starting to realize that there's multiple things presenting themselves, and That's the problem. There's just not a handful of things. There's multiple of these beings, projections of beings, whatever they are, and filming them. And I wish it was pareidolia, because you know what? It would be in some ways a much more. Life would be much more mundane and boring. But hell, it might be better off, studying, the history of dogs, for that matter. Anyways, can we establish with certainty that two beliefs are indeed identical? I believe we can. In earlier chapters, I have already given several examples of means of transportation used by sylphs. The ability of fairies to cross the continents cannot have escaped the reader's attention. In latter chapters, I have several rather striking tales to tell about Indian beliefs in flying races and aerial ships used by the gentry taking part in medieval wars. But I have not yet drawn from popular folklore the stories that support most directly the idea that strange flying objects have been seen throughout history in connection with the little people. But let us clear up this point. And that might be a good place to stop. See how much time if I had put it in here. I get back to write my book, and I get research, and then I said, well, I gotta find money. I'm not asking a lot. I just need to find $100, $200, $300. Actually, if it's $200, $300 a month, and I can still survive getting through this stuff and keep doing this stuff. But if I can't find it, I don't know what to do. I know one thing: I need to get new wheels for my wheelchair. If I don't get those wheels tires this month, I'm going to be fucked next year, because everything's going up 15%. So, anyways.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
If you don't know, you should take it slow. Are you searching? Is it